to welcome all of you to the regular board meeting of June 18th, 2019. We've got a full house here tonight. Looks great. For this moment in time, I would like everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It was really interesting.
Good job.
I heard some small voices.
Yeah, good job.
That was awesome.
And I'm very proud of you. That was awesome. Great job. Okay? Yeah, you too. I could hear that. Okay? It's good to hear.
He's talking to you.
Okay, Mr. Lilly is away at a clerk's convention gambling. At a clerk's convention. No, actually, he and Kathy are at a clerk's convention. So they're learning all the different duties and different things, and there's changes in the laws and voting. So it's the ongoing education. But I had to poke a little fun at him. So. Mr. Rummel, would you do roll call, please?
Sure. Liz Smith.
Here.
Scott Ruggles.
Here.
Terry Lilly is absent. Rick Kowal.
Here.
Mike Roman is here. Mike Powell.
Here.
Andrea Voorhees.
Present.
Okay. I am looking for a motion to approve the agenda, but Mr. Treasurer.
Mr. Supervisor, I have 3 items to add to the agenda. First is the new list of bills. And then I've got 8D, which is a proclamation celebrating the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, giving women the right to vote. And then I have 11H, which is approval of Firefighters' tentative agreement.
Thank you. I have a motion. Looking for support?
Support.
All support. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 5, public comment. Public comment is generally for anything that is not on the agenda. We, as a board, like to have people engage at the time that we're talking about things that are on the agenda. That way, you can kind of be involved in that right at that point of conversation versus coming in after the fact. If you have something to say, you need to get the portable microphone and identify yourself for the court recorder. And you have 3 minutes.
My name is Tony Meisel, and I live on Pinecrest Drive. I purchased my home 2 years ago when the septic field was tested by 3 different people, and it passed 3 inspections. After moving in and realizing that it did not work properly, and then after talking to the neighbors, it was not the only one with septic issues. In fact, the majority of the people on the street have indicated that this has been a decades-long problem. I'm here to look for support from the board for an emergency sewer line installation. To date, I understand that we have done the following in regards to running the main down Pinecrest Drive and Pinecrest Court. Since July of 2018, the committee has had meetings with township personnel on several occasions where it was requested relief on Pinecrest Drive and Pinecrest Court. Promises were made to have paperwork to the homeowners within a couple weeks, received them several months later, finally received paperwork for a different sub. Correction was made, and a couple months later we received it. But now it includes Sugden Road, Barrel Drive, Windhurst, an additional 70 acres, which is 100 units, and 45 acres for approximately $5,000 per unit. The association found out that the acreage would preclude us from being successful on this bid. At this point, they are still obtaining signatures, but also know that we will not be successful even if it had 100% of all the other homeowners to sign. Last week after the rain, overnight, we not only had a major flooding of Pinecrest Drive, most of the neighbors on the street could not flush their toilets, shower, or do anything else with water in their own homes. We have contacted the Drain Commission in regards to the flooding of the roads, but if the drainage doesn't happen, the sewage is a major problem. Unless you have lived through this problem, you do not know how it is to live without flushing the toilet every time it's used, not to shower every day or even when you would like. I remodeled my home and have a great laundry room that's never used the washing machine. I presently take my laundry to the laundromat. Again, unless you've lived through this problem, you do not know what I'm going through. Not only that, at some point, I'm concerned about home values declining and environmental consequences about not doing something about the sewage now. I understand from other people in other municipalities that this should be as simple as requesting a SAD and requesting what we want. The sewer department, which has, again, to request sewer to Pinecrest Drive and Pinecrest Court. I understand from President Rick Derry that they have been working with Aaron Potter and Rick Colwell to extend the main down Pinecrest Drive and Pinecrest Court. They have been at it for over a year, well, almost a year, actually. What can we do tonight to get the emergency sewer main approved?
Thank you. It's public comment. We don't retract to it, public comment.
How do I get this on something that we can get this done? I mean, you don't understand. You're not living it.
I am going to tell you, we are working on it.
But it's been a year. It's apparently nothing's happening quick enough for the people on Pinecrest Drive and Pinecrest Court. What do we do tonight to be able to get something done?
Set up an appointment and we'll come in and talk about it.
How do I get it on the board agenda?
It wouldn't matter if it was on the board agenda because the permits come from the Department of Natural Resources. There's a long, lengthy process that we have to go through that. We also have to optimize the sewer system when we put it in. So if it benefits you, it has to also have the possibility for benefiting other people within the area. It's a multifaceted process. It is not as simple.
I understand that,
Well, then,
but it's been a year
Then-
and there's not really been any movement. We're back to square one.
That's not necessarily the case. Okay. But I'll be more than happy to sit down and talk to you, and Mr. Potter and I will be happy to sit down and talk to you or anyone else from your subdivision.
Well, when I have called the sewer department, I get the answer, your association president is handling it.
You are at
And
3 minutes, dear, and it is public comment, and this is not to sit and have a debate. I appreciate your comment. I'd be happy to meet with you. I'd like to move on to the next person that has comment. Thank you. Anyone else have public comment at this time?
I am the Rick Derry, president of that
Whoops,
association.
grab the microphone so they,
Oh, I don't really
they
need
can't
one.
hear you on
Yeah, I
the,
get it.
on the-
Online. Oh, sorry.
Mrs. Meisel is correct. We've been working on this project for well over a year. It started out as just the Pinecrest Shores Pinecrest Street. It was changed along the way. At the time that we started this project, we had over 60% vote of yay to start that. There was some confusion that was sent out from the township about a different Brendel Heights that was sent out. We, and I could show you all the copies of stuff, as an association didn't back this, but we sort of had spearheaded it. But we sent out a letter saying that what we received, what the folks in our neighborhood received from the township was not correct. They sent out all the information, including the bids and stuff, from the companies that were bidding on it for Brendel Heights. So it backed it up a couple of months. But the response from the township was pretty responsive. It came within a couple of weeks. They did correct it. They sent it back out. This time around, we went from roughly 68 homes to 133 homes. It included 70 acres of vacant land and 46 acres of vacant land, of which they said that they could put 100 homes on one of the properties and 46 on the other properties. With that being said, with those votes being a nay, because we talked to the owners there's no way this is going to go forward. As of today, with certified votes and stuff, we have 67% with 2 on the fence, which would make 71% of the votes to get this put through. The real issue is over the last, and I'm going to say decades, because Barrel Avenue, Bogey Lake has become a joke. It's a cash cow for the guys pumping septic fields. They've been pumping, those trucks are coming 2, 3, 4 times a day. They're in and out of there. They're taking 1,500, 1,800, 2,000 gallons out of a 750-gallon tank. I've got pictures of flowing, of people being creative on the overflows from their tanks to put them into sump pumps and then pumping them to the drainage ditch. I got pictures of 14 below zero with grass growing in ditches. I've had people out and stuff. It has become a crisis. And like Tony said, we need the board, we need to get this. I'm working with Aaron Potter. He's been stellar about it. I think we need to step up the process. As of today, there are 5 homes within 4 homes of me that still cannot use their own utilities in their house. And that's because the water table is so high, it won't drain off. So they're going to laundromats and they're doing stuff like that. There's some creative folks that are bootlegging overflows in, and I can show it to everybody. We don't even need to do that. What we need to do is get the process picked up. She's right. Get the sewers going. It's really a quality of life issue here. So thank you.
Rick, I really appreciate if you would contact the office. We'll set up an appointment.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comment right now? Anybody in the back? Way outside in the hallway. Any public comment?
Public comment?
Nope, we're good? Okay. Thank you for your public comment.
Oh, yeah, I can tell you're really appreciative.
I am. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Moving on to item 6, consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda as amended with the new list of bills.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Looking for support?
Support.
I have support from Mrs. Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you. Moving on to item 7A, minutes, approval of the minutes of the special board meeting of April 23rd, 2019. Any comment from the board? Looking for a motion?
Motion to approve minutes from the April 23rd board meeting.
I have motion to approve. Looking for support?
Support.
I have support from Andrea
Andrea
Voorhees. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. 7B, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of May 14th, 2019.
So moved, Mr. Supervisor.
I have a motion and support
Support.
from Mrs. Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. 7C, approval of the minutes of the special board meeting of May 21st, 2019.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion, looking for support.
Support.
I have support from Andrew Voorhees. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. And finally, 7D, approval of the minutes of the special board meeting of May 14th, 2019.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve.
Support
Looking
that
for
also.
support from Andy Voorhees. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you. Okay, next we have presentations. Item number 8. If you didn't give me a form, we're going to be in trouble. Okay.
I do not have, Terry said that you and him were going to get together and
Oh,
have-
I got it here, man. I'm not missing this opportunity. Okay, Chief.
All right, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. This is a great day for the police department. We're going to swear in a new officer. We're going to give a civilian a life-saving award, and then we're going to give departmental awards to a lot of hardworking men and women in the police department. So we'll start with Jarrett Hinman. Why don't you come on up, buddy? Go ahead and stand there. All right. Jared is accompanied today by his grandmother Natalie, mother Debbie, father Daryl, stepmother Angie, sisters Abby, Emmeline, and brother Elliot. Go ahead and raise your hand and wave to everybody. There they are, a very proud family today. Jared is 26 years old and is from Holly, Michigan. Upon completion of high school in 2011, Jarrett served 4 years in the Marine Corps as an M1A1 tank crewman. In 2013, Jared was deployed to a combat zone in Afghanistan in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. In the fall of 2014, Jared was distinguished as the Marine of the Quarter for 1st Tank Battalion. After leaving the Marine Corps, Jared used a GI Bill to attend Ferris State University. Go Dogs. where he obtained a Bachelor of Science degree in Criminal Justice and graduated from the Police Academy in May of this year. What's special about Jared is between his junior and senior year of college in 2018, he interned here at the police department. So we've known Jared for quite a long time. He's an outstanding young man. And after serving as an intern, Jared decided to work for White Lake as his first choice, and he wants to spend his law enforcement career here. So we're very excited to have Jared here. And Mr. Supervisor, if you want to swear him in.
Okay. Well, this is my first time swearing in an officer. I usually let Mr. Lilly, he seems to enjoy it. So if I fumble a little bit, I don't know why. I, state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Michigan.
And the Constitution of the State of Michigan.
And that I will faithfully perform all the duties of officer
I will faithfully perform all the duties of officer
for the Township of White Lake,
for the Township of White Lake,
County of Oakland,
County of Oakland,
State of Michigan,
State of Michigan,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
And stab him in the chest. All right. Sorry, everybody. It's not Jen. It is not. She'd be all over it.
Thanks for saying no, White Lake.
Glad to have you aboard. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. All right, Chief, the floor is still yours.
All right, thank you. Gordon, you want to come up? Stand right there. Gordon is a very special individual, and I'll tell you why. On April 15, 2019, at approximately 5:46 p.m., victim was eating her meal at the White Lake Applebee's when she began choking on her meal. Within seconds, an employee of Applebee's attempted the Heimlich maneuver, but was unsuccessful at dislodging the obstruction. Waterford resident Gordon Briggs, standing before me, witnessed what was occurring and quickly sprang into action. Briggs went over to the victim, who was now unconscious. Briggs picked her up and applied the Heimlich maneuver. He applied one successful abdominal thrust, dislodging the obstruction. Briggs lowered the victim into a chair where she slowly began to breathe normal and regain consciousness. On April 23rd, Sergeant Connell reached out to the victim to see how she was feeling. She advised she was sore but doing well. She further stated she does not remember much of the incident but was very thankful for the quick action of Gordon Briggs. If not for the efforts of Gordon Briggs on April 15th, I feel the victim could have suffered a more permanent injury or even death. I further feel that Briggs should be acknowledged for his actions. Therefore, I'm presenting Gordon Briggs with the White Lake Township Police Department civilian citation for his life-saving efforts.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gordon.
Chief, it's
All right,
yours.
one more.
One more.
All right, so Sergeant Connell, Officer Swalwell, Officer Matthews, Officer Moore, Officer Hartner, Dispatcher Harrison, and Dispatcher Ebal coming up to the front, please. There you come. Come on in. Keep coming. Don't be shy. Move forward. Not you. You cover everybody up. There you go. Good. All right. On April 15, 2019, at approximately 5:47 p.m., and you'll notice that this was just after the medical emergency at Applebee's. So this occurred. That's why our dispatch is so. Can you please stop? This is our dispatchers are so important in this aspect because they handled one medical emergency and then turned around and handled another emergency. So they're vital to this police department. On April 15, 2019, at approximately 5:47 p.m., communications personnel received a frantic call in reference to a family dispute involving a firearm. Dispatchers Jill Harrison and Emily Ebal then dispatched Sergeant Brad Connell, Officers Wade Swalwell, Dylan Matthews, Stephen Moore, and Gregor Hartner to the residence just south of M59 for a felonious assault. The suspect, who was highly intoxicated, threatened his wife and son with a handgun. As the victims were calling 911, the suspect went to the basement and grabbed what the victim described as an AR-15 assault rifle. The suspect made the statement, "Call the police, there will be blood," and proceeded upstairs to the master bedroom. The victims exited the residence and the suspect barricaded himself inside. The victims advised officers that the suspect owned multiple firearms and thousands of rounds of ammunition. Upon arrival, Sergeant Connell and the officers secured the area, established a perimeter, and attempted to speak to the suspect. So what we do when we arrive at a situation such as a barricaded gunman, we try to get all points of view on the building. So Officer Hartner went to the rear of the residence and secured the rear of the residence to make sure that no one comes out the rear of the residence. Officer Moore was at the front corner where he had position on the left side of the house and the front of the house. Officer Matthews was on the other corner of the front of the house where he had the other side of the house and the front of the house. Officer Moore had less lethal, just in case it came to that. And then Sergeant Connell had incident command. Upon arrival, Sergeant Connell and the officers secured the area, established a perimeter, and attempted to speak with the suspect. Officer Swalwell positioned himself in a safe and secure position that was close enough to the front of the residence where he could build a rapport with the suspect. Several times during the negotiations, the suspect came out onto the front porch with a handgun, and he had a long rifle just inside the doorway. After several long hours, Officer Swalwell was eventually able to convince the subject to exit the residence without a firearm and walk down the driveway. Once tactically safe, Officer Swalwell and his fellow officers secured the suspect, taking him into custody with little force. The subject was processed and then housed at OCJ by the oncoming shift, which is Sergeant Way and his shift did a great job. It's really stressful when you get into a situation, you have all this going on, but there's so much other stuff that we have to do as a police department, and I appreciate Sergeant Way and his crew for assisting the day shift in that manner. The Detective Bureau was able to secure charges of assault with a dangerous weapon, felony resist obstruct, and domestic violence. If not for the combined efforts from these members of the White Lake Township Police Department on April 15, 2019, I feel this incident could have ended much, much worse. Therefore, I am here to present Sergeant Connell, Officer Swalwell, Officer Matthews, Officer Moore, Officer Hartner, Dispatcher Harrison, and Dispatcher Ebal with the White Lake Police Departmental citation for their outstanding performance during this high-risk incident.
Can you close that door behind you? Can you make it? Thank you. There you go. Thank you, Jim.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Good
Congratulations.
job,
Great
guys.
job.
You can help.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, I'm done for now. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
It's, now that you've taken up all this time. No, it's It's outstanding. It is really. It's very reassuring to our residents out there that we have a very professional police force. They take their job very, very seriously. And protection of the residents is first and foremost. And a situation that could have gotten real ugly worked out quite well. So, as best it could. So, moving on with presentations, we have item D, which we have added, which is a proclamation celebrating the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, giving women the right to vote. Whereas women of every race, class, and ethnic background across America have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of the United States in countless recorded and unrecorded ways, and whereas the women of this nation initiated the most significant women's movement in history, the need for women's suffrage, and whereas, despite the strong opposition, the inspiration and determination of women nationwide brought about the extraordinary accomplishment, the right for women to vote. Whereas on June 10, 1919, Michigan women cast their vote when Michigan voters ratified the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. And whereas the state of Michigan was the second state to ratify the 19th Amendment, giving women the right to vote. And whereas on August 26, 1920, voters across the nation secured the right for women to vote when the 19th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States was ratified, empowering American women and declaring for the first time that they, like men, deserve all the rights and responsibilities of citizenship, stating, "The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex." And whereas August 26, 2020 will mark the 100th anniversary of the passage of the National Suffrage Amendment, the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, guaranteeing women the right to vote, and now therefore be it resolved that I, Rick Kowal, White Lake Township Supervisor, remember and celebrate the historic women who fought for their rights of vote, to recognize the courage and inspiration of the bold women to change the course of history. Thank you. A little historical recognition of the road of the part of which women have played in America. One of the things that's always amazed me is the history behind women's roles in America, in particular during World War II. And it's very fascinating to find out the role that women played throughout that very trying time in our country. So I'm very proud to have done that. Thank you. Moving on to item 9A, a public hearing to confirm the special assessment role for Burgess Bay for Aquatic Weed Control and Lake Improvement Special Assessment District. Janine, do you have anything to add?
I do not, other than that you want to have a public hearing.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to,
Oh, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to open a public hearing.
I'll support it.
Roll call vote.
Roll call vote. Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Ruggles?
Yes.
Mr. Kowal?
Yes.
Mr. Roman votes yes. Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mrs. Voorhees?
Yes.
At this moment in time, anyone that would like to make comment on the special assessment role for Burgess Bay for the Aquatic Weed Control and Lake Improvement Special Assessment District may now speak up. Seeing none, I make a motion to close public hearing.
Support that?
All in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is now closed. Moving on to item 9B, the resolution number 19-021 confirming the special assessment role for SAD designated Burgess Bay Aquatic Weed Control and Lake Improvement. Janine, do you have anything to add?
Nope, it's just a renewal of a continuing special assessment that they've had for many, many, many years.
Very good. I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 19-021.
I have a motion to approve resolution 19-021. Looking for support.
Support.
I have support from Andrew Voorhees. All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you. Item 10A, Wow. 10A is something that I'm taking very personal. 10A is something very personal to this entire board and should be the entire community. It is a resolution number 19-018, the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund Grant, TF 18-0110, acceptance of the resolution. And what that is that the state, we are accepting a resolution from the state to accept the terms of their grant conditions and move forward with the acquisition of the property that is known as the Brendel Campground. This will enable us to have properties attached to the Township Hall and the Township Library within a path and walking system eventually, and will be a great enhancement for the long-term value of our community. Being as the land is being bought through the Department of Natural Resources Trust Fund, that land will remain a park in perpetuity. So there'll be no condos, there'll be no office buildings, there'll be nothing of the sort. It will remain what it is with park improvements that will be done through a master plan of which the Park and Recreation Department will work with the township and bring to the board with recommendations. And we're most anxiously looking forward to making that an amenity that all of the residents will be able to enjoy from now and forever, hopefully. So, with that, I am making a motion to pass Resolution 19-018, the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund Grant, TF 18-0110, acceptance of a resolution and allowing the supervisor to sign on behalf of White Lake Township. Looking for support.
As the Parks and the Rec liaison, I will fully support you on that. And thank you for your support on getting that.
Thank you.
$1.3 million.
Yes, I have a motion, I have support,
I had a comment.
roll call vote. Oh, I beg your pardon.
I had a comment.
Yes, sir.
Does the motion include the approval of the actual agreement?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
The resolution approves the agreement.
The resolution approves.
Mr. Kowal made.
Okay, roll
Clearly
call
he'll
vote.
sign.
Ms. Smith?
An enthusiastic yes.
Mr. Ruggles?
Yes.
Mr. Kowal?
I don't know.
Take that as a yes.
That's a yes.
Mr. Roman votes yes. Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Ms. Voorhees?
Absolutely, yes.
There you go.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Got it, yeah. All right. There'll be more chapters to this, but we are in the home stretch.
Who supported that? Andrea?
Yes.
10B. This is Resolution -19-022, intention to establish a special assessment district to be known as Meadow Lane Road Maintenance. Janine?
This is just a renewal of an ongoing, again, special assessment where they maintain their road with the funds that we collect for them.
Ongoing improvement, road maintenance plan.
Yes.
I am familiar with the road. Mr. Roman?
Motion to approve intent resolution number 19-022.
Just for the benefit of the public, it sets the public hearing on this SAD for the 16th day of July.
Does that need to go into the motion?
No, just because they don't have a copy of the resolution, just in case anybody wants to object, then the next public hearing date will be July 16th. Doesn't need to go in the motion, just wanted to make sure it was out there.
Support.
Your motion and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, thank you. Item 10C is Resolution 19-023 to adopt the White Lake Township Cross Connection Control Plan. And Mr. Potter is going to kind of brief us on that. And in case people don't know what a cross connection control program is.
Okay, so take out my glasses here. Oh, so tonight I'm asking the board to adopt a resolution adopting the White Lake Township Cross Connection Control Plan. So the state of Michigan cross connection rules, Rule 325.114-0 through 325.114-07, also known as Part 14 of Public Act 399, the Safe Drinking Water Act, requires public water supply to protect the system from contamination through cross-connection. The township has been operating on a cross-connection plan that was developed through our association with HydroCorp. Like most commercial, or like most municipalities, the original law, written in 1976, was interpreted to mean for commercial only. It was rewritten, Part 14 was rewritten in 2015 to clarify that it does apply to commercial properties, or to residential properties as well. So my working with HydroCorp, part of our contract with HydroCorp is to amend our plan from time to time. And through working with HydroCorp and EGLE, we determined that the plan that we were operating under was never officially adopted by the township. And so it didn't technically meet the requirements of the law under the new written rules. So this plan was the product of about a month of back and forth working with our contractor HydroCorp that does our commercial side. Basically, most of it was already existing. Anything that referred to commercial was removed, and commercial and residential was applied. You'll see in the back of the plan, we've gone so far as to create all the draft letters that we'd be sending out for all the different steps of the plan implementation. So we feel like this is ready to go tomorrow, and the plan was adopted and approved by MDQ on May 7th.
Very good. Okay. I know that's, the community, we live in a community where our 100% of our drinking water comes from the ground, whether it's your well or the township's community well. So every effort has to be taken to protect that groundwater that we can, and this is another step to protect it through any back siphoning into the system for contamination. It's rather involved. The packet was rather, it's good reading material to go to sleep.
It's comprehensive.
Yeah, it's very comprehensive.
Could I
However,
say something?
Yes.
I have to go. My wife's in labor.
Oh my goodness.
Thanks.
You're excused.
Scott, you need some help?
I need a note. Okay. Well, make sure you let us know what's going on. Will do. Okay. All right. Well, exciting news. We'll have our newest White Lake resident here shortly. Okay.
It was the plan.
Yeah. The water broke at the time of the water.
No big deal.
Better show up.
I have to applaud Mr. Potter, because Mr. Potter, and you've heard the board talk about him multiple times, he's really made strides to try to modernize and bring our water and sewer department up to snuff. It is a daunting task, and we do have other residents tonight that voice their concerns on something, and we as a township board are very concerned about these issues, and the groundwater quality is very important, so we are in the process of trying to move things forward, but there is a process, and sometimes it's longer than people want it to be, and it's more arduous than people want it to be, but nonetheless, we still have to follow those processes. So, Aaron, I thank you for your presentation. Does the board have any questions? Okay.
There's a
Mr.
surprise,
Powell.
right?
Yeah.
The township desperately needs an ordinance like this. I just have some questions, and I don't know whether or not you, Mr. Supervisor, or Mr. Potter might have the answers. I'm a little bit concerned that we're adopting this tonight if we don't have answers to these kind of questions. How big of a force are we going to need to hire in the township in order to accommodate this resolution?
We have been currently operating on the unapproved, unadopted plan since as far back as I could find in our records, going back, I think 2009 was our first contract with HydroCorp that I could find. And so for us, I don't think that we're talking about hiring anybody. My staff has already been trained on cross-connection inspection. We are currently doing cross-connection inspections while we're in a house for any reason. We also gather data on service line materials, water quality parameters, field kit water quality parameters, meter information, type, age, serial numbers, those kind of things when we're in a house for any reason. And so, so far we've been able to get, somewhere between 100 and 200 homes a year done in that fashion. So we're not looking at this as an increase in staff. And we always have the option, like we have a contract with HydroCorp for the commercial side due to the complexity of the commercial industrial buildings. And this plan, one thing I did do, when we started working with HydroCorp on the development of this plan, it said HydroCorp on every single page at least 30 times. And we've kind of sanitized it in a way that allows me to have the flexibility to hire contractors that we see fit without going back to the board for another resolution to adopt another plan. So I think that we'll be okay with the staffing levels that we have, but if we do need to hire additional personnel, that language is all spelled out in this plan.
Okay. The other question I had is this going to be covered under the line item into the water department under the current budget, or are we going to be charging the residents more money to initiate this on the residential side?
This is going to be, well, there's different parts of this. Testable devices will be required, a resident will be required, which they're required under our current ordinance to test testable devices, within the frequency specified in the law. The inspections will be covered under our current operational budget.
Okay, so there will not be any special assessments to the current users of our water system?
No. If we, down the road, our operational budget is basically reflected in a rate study, and we're working on that now as well, but I don't foresee any additional need for staffing based on this.
Okay. The other question I had was there is a sliding scale as to the amount of inspections necessary between 1 and 5 years, and then depends upon somebody's interpretation of the hazard. Who makes that interpretation, whether you need to inspect every year or every 5 years?
That would be me that makes that determination, and I would be basing that on the cross-connection rules manual, which is the Exhibit B in this plan.
Okay, that's typically on the commercial side or the residential side as well?
Typically, the residential side would be one for 5 years. Commercial varies, all over the place, but that's already well established.
Okay. One of the last items is this is a very, when you read this, it's a very heavy-handed ordinance or resolution. It gives the township the right to turn people's water off, gives the right to go to court and force entry. It reserves the right, once you get into the home, to go into any part of the home you want, to access any part of the home, to try to
Related
find
to the water system.
But you don't know where those water systems are, so they have the right to go into bathrooms, closets, kitchens, basements, bedrooms, everything, and that gives the right to do that. And I'm a little bit concerned about the way it's written. It is so heavy-handed that if you don't allow them to do that, they can go out and turn your water off until you allow them to do that. And I'm a little concerned about that.
That's actually required.
Very heavy-handed wording.
Yeah, so the law actually specifies what needs to be contained in the plan and what doesn't. First of all, the right to inspect is already in our current ordinance for any reason during any reasonable time. We have the right to shut water off for plenty of reasons in our current ordinance. So I say this meets the elements of the law. The majority of this is what our current plan is. And, I think that if you read it, looking at it, I'm going to use your language that we talked about in the rental ordinance, jack boots and, kicking the front door down because Cousin Eddie's staying too long.
Right.
If you read it with that in mind, because it is plainly written in black and white, I think that, if somebody were inclined to interpret it like that, I'd be saddened, but it's plainly written to make it so that it's not confusable and there are no gray areas.
Counselor?
Were you done?
I wasn't quite done yet, but go
But
ahead.
just to, I think would comfort you a little bit is, Aaron, if I recall correctly, your plan is pretty in line with the department's, whatever used to be of environmental quality, Eagle.
Yeah.
The department's model plan and consistent with the department's rules and regulations.
Correct.
And we know in this society that government is taking over more and more demands on people and forcing their weight around a little bit more, and I'm opposed to that, and so I'm concerned.
Can I just ask, do you have some specific examples of things that you'd like me to approach the DEQ on?
More than anything, the right for the township to charge any amount that they want. That's number one. So it gives no guidance on staffing or the amount of the cost and who you're going to attribute that cost to. But more than that, the right to force entry on page 8 is my biggest concern. And I didn't write down the specific section.
I don't recall having anything in this plan that talks about forcing entry.
Well, it says if you don't get entry, you can go out and turn the water off.
Yep.
And then you can go to court to have the judge demand you to be able to go in and get entry.
Which
Well,
is
that's
in our
through due process. It's
which
not
is-
forced entry.
Mike,
You
that's
kind of,
correct
but
statement.
you kind of put their back to the wall when you can go out and turn their water off.
When they don't follow protocol, yes.
So
that is a required element that is required. You have to have a way to enforce this plan. If somebody refuses, for example, I've had a person refuse that had no backflow preventer, that had an irrigation system going out into their lawn where they had their septic field. So we found this out when we had a water main break in their front yard and wanted to, first test to see, is it a water main break or is it irrigation? Well, I found their irrigation system, no backflow preventer. So in discussions with the homeowner, they don't have one. So I would consider that basically we're gonna have to shut that off. If they had a water main break, and especially in that area where that was in Colony Heights, that elevation in there, certain breaks in certain areas, I could have negative pressure and pull water back from that irrigation system into the township's drinking water system. And without that ability to shut those folks off to prevent that problem, you have no way of enforcing it.
That's just a little different. Obviously, that's a known problem. You have to shut it off. But in this ordinance, in this resolution, it assumes you're guilty, and then you have to prove your innocence.
I don't see that
I
anymore,
don't.
Mike.
Oh, it actually states that. It says, if you're not allowed entry, it's assumed you have a cross connection and your water's turned off.
Where is-
Page 8?
Page 8.
I apologize, it may not be page 8, but I read that elsewhere in the ordinance. So, and it's defined there that if you are not allowed in, you're assumed that there's a cross connection and your water can be turned off.
Let me give you another example, another way of looking at this. Currently, we have the same ordinance, the right to inspect for meters, meter repairs, meter service. If somebody refuses to let us in for a meter service, we have the right to send them a 30-day notice, then we'll send them a 24-hour notice, then we'll shut the water off on the 32nd day. And until they allow us into that home to repair that meter, we have that authority. Now, this, like I say, that authority and that right to enter and inspect is already in our township ordinance. This is a public safety issue. Why would we allow ourselves to have the right to shut somebody off for a cash flow issue, but deny ourselves the right to do that to prevent contamination of the system that their neighbors and the surrounding community relies on?
I started this discussion on saying that we need this ordinance. We need an ordinance like this, without a doubt. My concern is, in reading it, it comes across as so heavy-handed, and specifically that item that I read, that if you don't allow inspection, it's assumed there's a cross connection, therefore your water's turned off.
No, Mike, excuse me,
so
Mike,
I-
that doesn't say that. I just found it.
Unless there's
Okay,
a
did you
different-
find it?
Unless you've got it someplace else.
And I
That's not what it
apologize.
says.
I found something on page 7, which is somewhat similar, but it doesn't say water turned off. I
Okay.
don't know what else it could be, but it says, if the inspector is refused proper access or if customer plumbing is untraceable, White Lake Township will assume a cross connection is present and take the necessary action to ensure the public water supply is protected.
Okay, that is what I remember. So it's assumed that there's a cross connection problem, and what is the appropriate action then on that issue, on that section?
Well, first of all, let's back up one step. So we're not randomly going out and knocking on doors saying we want in your house right now. There's probably 24 inspection notice letters that go out, and these things are scheduled well in advance.
Okay.
So if a cross connection is found to exist, or if we need to go out into, say we're down to the last few homes, we're required to have our entire system inspected every 10 years. So let's theoretically say we're in the 9th year or the 10th year, and we're down to the last few, and Cousin Eddie won't let me in the house to get eyes on this. We're not going to be in compliance with this law. And at that point, we would have sent Cousin Eddie, I mean, you look through these letters, first notice, second notice, third notice, shut off notice. We've exhausted all other opportunities to try and get in there and get this inspection done, which we're required by law to do. This is not a negotiation. So as far as the untraceable home plumbing, the cross-connection rules manual and cross-connection inspection training covers how to discern where plumbing goes and comes from and those type of things. There are always going to be homes that have a finished basement, say with a drop, with a drywalled ceiling. That stuff is addressed in the rules manual pretty thoroughly. And, HydroCorp training, they talk about, the invasiveness of going in and crawling around underneath somebody's bathroom sink and those kind of things. How they address that is through literature. They'll give those folks, this is what they look like, you don't want to have this, and those kind of things. So there's ways around that, and that is really left up to the inspector and myself. But like I said, this plan was written by the majority of the meat of this plan was written by HydroCorp. The majority of the ordinances in this plan are already in our township ordinance. Nothing has really changed there. I'm not really following you on that one. I think that the discussion as far as whether or not it sounds like we're asking ourselves whether or not we want to comply with the law, and that's really not a choice that I get to make.
Okay, Mr. Roman?
Guys, a plan this comprehensive can always be amended and/or improved. My suggestion is the bulk of it we're all good with. Mr. Powell, you've got some improvements you want to put in. Maybe you can bring those back to the board or get with Aaron. But I think we were all good with the majority of this.
And certainly that's an enormous amount of volume, and I don't want to be like, I was suggesting maybe if we haven't gone through it, if the majority of the board has not gone through it, I don't want to be like a politician that says we have to pass it in order to find out what's in it.
I've gone through it.
Okay, so
It was our board package.
so my overall feeling was that not to say the staff would do this, but it gives the right to the township to be very, very heavy-handed. Let me ask you another question. Does our ordinance require that if there's a water main in front of your house, you cannot sink a well and have a private well?
Yes, it does.
So what you're saying is that you can't sink a well, you must tie in, but if you don't follow the rules of tying in, we can shut your water off and make your house unlivable.
You have to follow the rules. That's what it says.
Mike,
Okay.
do you want to propose changes?
I would love
Could
to
be
hear some
brought
changes.
back?
If you
What I-
would
what I was-
like
what I
to
was gonna
propose them,
s-
I'd like some specifics, please.
Yeah, what I was going to suggest is to put it off for till next month, because we currently have an ordinance that's in place. But in reality, I'd rather do it the other way. I'd rather, although we've been trying to make changes to the sanitary sewer ordinance for a year and a half now and haven't done it yet, and so that's a concern.
Well, we did make changes to the sanitary ordinance.
So I guess I'd rather go forward with this and then bring back.
Yeah, you've got to realize
concerns
this
instead.
document's been approved by the DEQ. So if we go to make changes on this, the DEQ is going to want to look at whatever changes we potentially make. So the DEQ, or Eagle,
Yep.
is the ones that are really in the driver's seat for this. So these are mandates because of all the water issues that's been across the state. And I think as in anything else that you see, when something happens, you often see a little greater action take place, and people would rather err on the side of caution than not. There's no one that's going to be going in here and jackbooting Gestapo and kicking their door down and, turn your water off or else. But we have to have the tools in the box. There are many, many times that, in many instances, in a variety of departments and throughout the township and different things where we don't have enough tools. But this being a public utility, drinking water, and meeting the requirements, and the DEQ Eagle wants us to pass this and make it part of our plan. I am completely comfortable with the way that it is written and Mr. Potter's expertise in handling the situation and has been dealing with it for an extended period of time without having any really huge problem from the public. So I understand your position, Mike, I do, but this is not one that we have a lot of choice in.
Except, let me just make a statement, and everyone will know where I'm coming from. I deal with the DEQ, now Eagle, virtually daily. And quite frankly, they are an organization that runs this state. And they have people in power that would like very much to just force the issue and have them control all our lives. And just because Eagle or DEQ says do it, doesn't necessarily make it right, and I have a major issue with that.
I can understand
So-
that, but there is a process that we operate under their licensure, and part of the licensure that we operate our water system states that we must comply with their rules and regulations, and this is just one of them.
Sometimes we have to push back on those, though.
We
So-
have in the past, but you tend up losing.
That
Mr. Potter?
that being said, I just bring it to my colleagues' attention that that's the feel I got when I went through this resolution.
Okay,
If I may, this is just a suggestion, Mr. Powell. Would it make you feel more comfortable to slip in there, insert like the process? You get a 30-day notice, then you get a week notice. So
I believe it's in there.
residents
The
process
no,
is
put it
spelled out
right
in-
here in the
Oh.
inspection part, so it's understood that they're not just forcing their way in. Would that make you feel more comfortable?
You know what?
If you start taking parts of this out of context,
Yeah,
it's,
I
mean,
feel-
in the
I feel
context
very
of this
comfortable in
plan,
our
written
staff.
the way it is.
Mr.
spells it out
Potter
very-
is very good, and our staff is very good. I just can see future administrations playing a very dictatorial hand with this and
Mike?
forcing the
I'm
issue.
not talking about dismantling it. I was just talking about
Oh, yeah.
repeating.
No, I'm good, and you answered it very well, Aaron. Thank you very much.
All right, all right, are we
Yes,
okay?
thank you.
Should make a motion.
I'll make the motion. Mr. Supervisor?
Yes.
I move that this board adopt the resolution regarding cross-connection control plan, resolution number 2019-023, with the understanding that our fellow residents are just that, our neighbors, and we have to take into account individual hardships in pursuing the enforcement of this new resolution and ordinance.
Thank you. I'll
Mr.
take that as-
Supervisor, I'd just like to make absolutely clear, I do not get the right to choose whether I want to meet the requirements of PA 399. My certification to operate water systems comes from EGLE, with the assumption that we are going to adhere to the law. And so I hate to do this because we're about to pass this, but I have to object to any additions to this that we feel like gives us the authority to pick and choose whether we want to follow the law on an individual basis.
I don't
So I'd like
think-
to make that very clear.
I don't, excuse me, I don't think there's any modification to it other than that we obviously give the best courtesy we can to our residents.
Right.
That's
That's
it.
all that was
That's the
passed.
extent of it. Okay, motion made, looking for support?
Support.
Motion support, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it,
Thanks,
thank
Mike,
you,
for
thank
making
you.
that motion.
Okay, next item is 11, new business. That will be first reading of the ordinance to amend Chapter 38, Article 2, Section 38, 245 of the Water System Code of Ordinances. Another big book of reading material.
No, this one's an easy one. You've got a 2-page document in front of you. It's redlined with revisions to how we refer to the adopted cross-connection control plan. The original ordinance referred specifically to the Michigan Administrative Rules for PA 399, Part 14. Through discussions with our attorney, this is basically just a cleaner version, and the remainder of this is exactly what's in our current township ordinance.
Counselor, any comment?
Nope, I think Aaron did a good job with this.
Okay. Mr. Roman,
I'll make a motion to move to second reading.
I have a motion to move to second reading, the ordinance to amend Chapter 38, Article 2, Section 38, 245, Water Systems Code of Ordinances.
Do I need a roll call vote or no? No?
Did I get a second down
Yes,
there?
you did.
From Andrea Voorhees? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, thank you. Item 11B, Chief? How are you?
Wonderful, but it's really,
We have a request to purchase a replacement fire department utility pickup truck. Chief, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Well, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. Trying to figure out a lot of things as we go along here. I started about 6 weeks ago here, and one of the items in the budget request was a request for a replacement vehicle for a utility truck, a 4-door pickup truck to be utilized to haul equipment and personnel around, both for emergency scenes and non-emergency scenes. It's replacing a 12-year-old vehicle that has substantial rust to it, along with some mechanical issues. So essentially, we went to 3 dealerships, Dodge, Ford, and Chevy, and asked for their prices on the types of vehicles we would need, and we received those prices. Lowest price is a local dealer, and so we're recommending that be approved for purchase.
Okay, I see that, and I certainly appreciate going local whenever possible. That is important, and we like to keep those relationships moving forward. I see the 3 bids that you have. I know it was comparable equipped vehicles. Any questions from the board?
Where are your plans for the old one?
Will be disposed of as soon as we're done through the normal.
Auction.
Okay, that's all there, okay.
Parade truck. Mr. Roman,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase of a 2019 pickup truck for the fire department, not to exceed $33,500.
I have a
Support.
motion
Support.
and support from Mrs. Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Item 11C. Item 11C was something we had FYI and some conversation on in many weeks and many meetings internally at the township, and then back and forth of information. This is a first reading, which means, again, there are opportunities to make any corrections within it. I would like to turn to council for a moment. Council, do you have anything to add?
Well, I think it's probably more appropriate for John or Sherry or someone who did a lot more work on this. But
I was starting with you.
I know. I do want to comment. I received a call yesterday from the Apartment Association of Michigan. They apparently participated in some past legislation that affects multifamily apartment tenant notification requirements. We might need to revisit that in the ordinance, but we will redline any changes from today to second reading. So if you're inclined, you can still move forward today, and then we'll highlight whatever changes were made between today, and you can adopt at the next meeting. Just wanted to bring that to your attention. This, the drafting of this ordinance has gone through so many revisions and 2 years in the making.
Almost 3 now. Yeah.
And so this legislation came down last year, but since we'd done all the research at the outset, we missed this new legislation. And it does affect a very small subset, but we will fix it before it's adopted. I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Okay, thank you. John, do you have any comments you'd like to make on this?
I'm glad we're here. We finally, I feel like we finally made it, right? Yeah, I think we're nearly 3 years putting this together. And I want to thank Brent and Sherry and of course Lisa and Rick and Mike. We had a committee. This was a lot of work. I think the hardest part was the starting. Where do you start with something like this? And then when you talk about rental property, when you start enacting more ordinances, you're going to get some pushback. This is kind of our phase one. We need to get this through. We still have some administrative procedures we're going to work through. We're not going to jump into this with 2 feet. We're going to drown if we do. This is new to us. So it's going to be a slow process. It's not going to be something that's once codification happens and is done, we're just going to go out there and start enforcing it. We're going to have to kind of build on this. So we're going to start out really small. I just want to make sure the board is aware of that.
This is a very similar implementation that Waterford did, and we took a lot of this knowledge from their program, and of course we've talked about it, Mike, back and forth, and just trying to make sure that we have safer housing. Not a heavy hand in this, but this was kind of predicated because of an instance that came to my attention, and there were people living in conditions that I wouldn't let a dog live in, and they were absolutely deplorable and unsafe and just physically disgusting. The pictures that we had were just unbelievable, and it's just not acceptable in our society and in our community. We should not have these type of problems, and we need the tools in the box for the building department and the fire department and the township when the need arises to remedy these situations. I will tell you that our ordinance officer, Jason Hudson, as the ordinance that we have, he always tries to give people the opportunity to remedy the situation, and we work with them. This is the same manner of which, whether it's the water department or the building department, we always try to work with the residences. They're not out here to be, a tyrant, but we have to have the public safety in mind. So I applaud all of you, and Sherry, I really appreciate, I know you went back, you see me coming in, you'd run. Because it'd be, I need another change, and there were so many changes made on this, and we're very fortunate to have some help from one of the inspectors, Dave Hills, from Waterford Township, who firsthand, boots on the ground, what we did right, what we did wrong, what we learned, and take it from us. We've been doing it now, as in Waterford, for well over, I think it's got to be over 10 years now. I mean, or 8 or 10 years, something like that, they've been doing it. And I've had conversations with Gary Wall and the building department, and it's made a significant increase in certain areas where there was some problematic conditions. So it has made some things safer. So I appreciate and I applaud all your efforts and everyone that worked together as a team and all the input that we got, because it took all of us, and there was some language, and we just wanted to make sure that it wasn't intrusive. Right. And we made these corrections for that respect. With that, I am looking, you have a question?
Yeah, so what you're talking
You have to identify yourself for the microphone, they won't hear you on TV. Joe.
Joe LaFlamme, 1780 Mead Lane. What is it that you're talking about stuff, but what is it that you're trying to do?
We're trying to make sure that there is safe rental housing within White Lake Township, so that there's...
So where do we learn?
You can come in and get a copy of the ordinance as it is being written right now. There's really nothing really terribly intrusive. I am a landlord, okay? I have apartments. I applaud this.
Well, I get what you're saying,
Yeah.
and I understand, and I'm with you. But as long as the people that are doing what they're supposed to do don't get penalized because of the people that, you get what I'm saying.
That's not how this is written.
Okay.
No, that's not our intention. I wouldn't go along with that either.
This is to prevent problems.
Yeah. I'm good as long as Brent's the building inspector, but he's getting older, and he's going to retire.
Well, Brent and I...
Me tomorrow.
All right.
I'll go over the whole thing with you. I'll even give you a draft copy if you want.
Yep, that would be great. Come in and get a copy, Joe.
I got it as long as it's okay with my boss.
Yeah, you're good.
All right.
Next question.
John Early, 5925 Pine Ridge Court. I have 3 questions on this. Number 1, how do you find out if people are renting but have not registered? Number 2, what instigates an inspection? And then number 3, on the repairs, and I had questioned this before, if it's a residential property and it's built to residential building code and it requires a repair, is that repair accomplished to restore the property to residential building code?
I'm going to let, the first one, I'll tell you, the first question, we will start a registration process, which is the first step, which will take time. It is basically based on rental properties. Some of them are very obvious. Apartments, hotels, duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes. Where it gets a little iffy and where you need to do a little bit of homework, which we can do, is go to some of the single-family homes that are owned throughout the township as investment property, because those properties are non-homestead and they're relatively easily identifiable. Those would be classified as rental properties. They would be given an opportunity to register into this program. Again, you need to read all, it's too involved for me to give you the whole shtick right now, but they would be given that opportunity to register into that program. That's how you identify, and it'll be done through a quadrant program, go through the township, because it will take time to build this database up and get all these people into this system. That would be the first thing. As far as anything that is a dysfunction, it would be something that's a obvious public safety issue. Those will be determined by the residential code, of the residential code, and the building department will be the authority to make those calls. I mean, if you go out to a house and somebody's got an old set of steps and the rise and run isn't what it's supposed to be to 1905 standards, it was built, and it's now 2000, 22, 23, 25, whatever year we end up inspecting a house, we're not going to make people go back and change that step. It is what it is, okay? But if you walk into a house, for an example, and there are wires and the plug is sticking out of the wall 3 inches and the wires are hanging there and there's no protective coating around it, that's an obvious hazard, okay? Those are the types of things that need to be remedied. And issues where there might be the inability for someone to lock a home and for a home not to be secure, for a window not to close properly to keep the weather out. And these would be things that we would be mindful of, and always keep in mind that people do have economic limits. But we try to make sure that the blatant or obvious safety issues would be addressed and corrected to the building department's satisfaction.
Well, somebody might have a homestead exemption, it's their house. They rent the basement out.
Well, number one, I don't want to hear that. No. Because if that's a whole set of worms that you're getting into, that you don't even, would be most likely, John wouldn't be real happy with that, because you may not have an egress window in your house, and that means you're in direct violation of a state law. And there was 7 or 8 Chinese nationals that died over in Novi. The owner of that restaurant is making little rocks out of big rocks.
My question is, how would that be found out?
I beg your pardon?
What is the mechanism where that can be found out?
It's going to be through the registration process. We don't know. We're not going to be knocking down people's doors and looking at this stuff. So I don't have all the answers for you. It's impossible. Any other questions? Okay. Brent, you have anything you want to add?
No, it's just, the building code doesn't allow us to go into people's homes and make them retrofit it or bring it up to code. There are some life safety features that require retrofitting, but they're limited to like smoke detectors or carbon monoxide detectors. Other than that, you know, just apply the best amount of safety you can to the stuff.
A little common sense goes a long way.
Yeah, I pulled a building permit one time, looked at the code, and I went down there to get a permit for a 300 amp service. And the guy says, "What do you want a 300 amp service for?" And I said, "Well, I have that many square feet." He said, "No, we don't make it."
Okay, any other questions from the board?
I just have a statement. I
Yes,
wanted
sir.
to thank Fire Marshal Holland and the building department, because as you know, I think Mr. Ruggles and I had some concerns about the interpretation. They really softened it and made it more readable, and so I appreciate that very much.
All right, with that, I'd like to have a motion. Mr. Roman.
Make a motion to move to second reading the White Lake Township rental property ordinance.
Motion, looking for support.
Support.
Support from Andrew Voorhees. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Next item is item 11D. Mike, you want to take that? Since you're the bean counter around?
Sure. So, Plant Moran. Thanks, guys. Plant Moran has been auditing the township for a number of years now, and we've been extremely happy with them. They do a great job. They work very well with our employees. And we just finished a 5-year program with them, and it's time now to consider renewing Plant Moran as township auditor. In front of you, we have been given 2 options, a 3-year option and a 5-year option. The 3-year option is a little more expensive than the 5-year option, and I think that's how we went with the 5-year last time. We're looking at an average of about $42,000 a year with the 5-year plan, and an average of a little bit higher, closer to $43,500 for the 3-year plan. So this is up for discussion. My thought is go with the 5-year plan, save the residents some money. Plant Moran not only does a great job with the audit, but they're a wealth of information on many topics. They keep up our accounting department with many of the new accounting pronouncements. And I know our accounting department loves working with these people.
They have a very, very good working relationship, and is a very professional one. They're extremely thorough, and they literally camp out here for a couple weeks, and a lot of questions are asked. Files are brought up. Elaine spends a lot of time, and Dawn, as well as Lisa and a lot of the other members of the staff. So it's, I'm very comfortable with it. When you have trust in a group that you work with, I think it makes sense to at least have that opportunity to move forward with another 5-year program.
Yeah, I agree with both you guys. They are a very good relationship. Keep it up. Do the 5-year plan.
Okay, thanks.
About how much of an increase is this over our last contract with them?
It's about 2%.
Yeah, it's very
minimal.
About a
yeah, I
2%
was
increase.
very pleased.
Okay, thank you.
That it was minimal. Yeah. Any other questions from the board?
No, not a question. I agree. For not being here every day as a trustee, the booklet they give us is impeccable and it's so helpful. It's very thorough. So I've been pleased.
You walk away with a good snapshot.
Yep.
And it's also easy for the public, I believe, to, it may be written in Accountanese, but at some point you can understand it, and I think you get a good feel for it, so you know what we're doing. Okay, Mr.
I'll make a motion to approve a 5-year option with Plant Moran per the proposal at hand.
Well, the supervisor.
and allow the supervisor to sign this agreement.
I have a motion, looking for support?
Support.
Motion, support, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, thank you.
You supported, Mike?
I did.
Mr. Powell did. Mr. O'Neill, Trailside Meadow Plan Development Agreement.
Hello there. Yes, this is the final step with boards and commissions for this project. You are all probably familiar with the Trailside Meadow project, which is on the south side of Elizabeth Lake Road and just east of Colony Heights. On the 6th of this month, the Planning Commission recommended approval of this development agreement with some conditions to the Township Board. Before you have really everything in the packet. There's 90 pages, so there's enough material here to keep anyone busy and well rested as it puts you to sleep night after night for the last week reading through your packet. So basically, the only item that has yet to be addressed outside of the items that are listed in the review comments, which are pretty minor, is the value of their contribution to the sidewalk that will run along the south side of Elizabeth Lake Road. I think the easiest thing to do might be to use the right keyboard. Various mice, various keyboards. Gets confusing, okay. So they have roughly 300 feet, and Matt and Nikki are here on behalf of the development group and can correct me when I misspeak if that does happen. This is basically the property that we're talking about, 73 acres. The sidewalk is intended to run from their project as far east as we can get it. We call this their pseudo frontage, which is the area that is kind of parallel from, or their shadow frontage. Do we call it shadow or pseudo?
Pseudo.
Pseudo. They have true frontage of about 300 feet, I believe. There are a couple hundred feet here, and then there's a flag lot. We've got all these names that is about 60 feet wide. It kind of pokes out to Elizabeth Lake Road, and you can see that better on your plan. They intend to divest of that property. It'll either be donated to the township or given over to the homeowners on either side of it in exchange for an easement for the sidewalk, the 6-foot sidewalk. So they're going to install about 300 feet right now. And if we can get easements, they're going to install the other 1,000 feet of pseudo frontage that they're going to build sidewalks kind of mirroring. I would say with one exception, we're not going to build it going west. It doesn't connect to anything going west. We're going to use the pseudo frontage that would be, I don't know, roughly
It's almost
400.
exactly 1,000 feet total on
It's-
between the two sides.
Right. So it's about 1,000 feet, but whatever. This is maybe 400 feet, 300 feet. Whatever this is, we're going to flip it and try to get it as far east to this intersection as we can. So I think you're putting 300 feet in, and
It's 450 on that side, Sean.
Okay.
To the west, and then yeah, it's about 300-ish that we actually own up there or we will own on Elizabeth Lake Road.
and then about 550 more of
Correct.
pseudo frontage. So if you're following all of this, basically we are not going to put the sidewalk in going west of their entryway to their development. They're going to put sidewalk in here. They're going to put sidewalk in over here, and then they're either going to put sidewalk in 1,000 more feet of sidewalk in going east, or they're going to make a contribution per this agreement that will be held until we can secure all the easements. So we have a price range. It's been kicked around just today, as a matter of fact, somewhere between $32,000 and $64,000. We just began discussing, what that amount would be up until 6 o'clock tonight, probably. So I guess I would be comfortable with, if you were comfortable with us, and by us I mean the township engineer and I working with the developer to try to hammer that out, because it's not just right. In fairness, we're not going to pave this in gold, but at the same time, we're not just buying concrete either. There are other things that are going to go into, whether we do it or they do it, putting sidewalk in. You can't just show up today and slap it in, but we're not going to do anything extreme there either. We're going to put a 6-foot sidewalk to a basic standard through, easements that we acquire at some point in time, or they acquire if they're able to do so. they're going to be out here for a couple of years building houses, and I think our feeling is, and the intent is for them to work with us or for us to help them get as many easements and get as much of this in as they can get. And if they put it all in, then there won't need to be any money deposited here. If they can't get it all in, then we'll have to kind of figure out what's missing, and then we'll kind of have to go to work.
Well, I think it's a pretty big amenity, then all those kids get to ride their bike to the ice cream store.
Yeah, and 7-Eleven.
That's got some serious buying.
Right, but not the school, because there aren't any sidewalks in the school property. Right, but that's a whole nother discussion. So and again, the theory from going, for going east is just that, again, there are no sidewalks going west on Elizabeth Lake Road at this point. The topography is a little bit tough west of their entrance. And there are 2 access points at both Sherry and Sharon into Colony Heights to the west, which are, wrong mouse, which are these 2 road stubs right here. So anyone who wants to come from the west, and this is all part of the area affectionately referred to as the super sub, so anyone who can get onto this street network, basically in this entire area can get into the street network, can get to this set of private roads that has easements for the public to use them and get on their sidewalk system and get out to Elizabeth Lake Road and then down hopefully to the corner safely. So we think it's a good benefit. We think it's going to help people certainly beyond. When we say community, we don't mean the people they're selling houses to and making money off of. We mean White Lake Township, and that's where they've targeted their community benefits with some of their infrastructure improvements, donations to neighboring SAD projects, upgrades to our water system, upsizing, and we've talked about that, and then the sidewalk as well. So again, we're comfortable with everything. If you're comfortable with it, and we can certainly administratively wrap this all up as we traditionally do. One thing you'll notice is the signature pages are probably almost as long as the development agreement, because there are many entities involved in all of this. So we're going to sort all of that out. And if you have any questions for me or for them, we're both here to hopefully be able to answer those. But again, the recommendation of the Planning Commission was approval of this agreement, subject to the review comments that are found in their included letters.
I just have a comment. I just want to thank you, Sean, for continuing to advocate and be my voice, and I think it's safe to say Mr. Powell's voice and staying strong on the sidewalks and the meeting minutes. I appreciate that. I'm looking for them to going as east as possible on the south side of the street. I think that will be great and so much safer. There's a lot of kids that travel that direction anyways, and it is like in ditches and really close to the road, and it's a crest and people speed. So I mean, the sidewalk is really will be a great amenity for the super sub.
Sure.
So thank you. I appreciate that. I am a little disheartened when I went and looked at it physically of the green belt. I thought we were going to try our best to keep a little bit more, but I think we're too far along now in the process for that. But
the green belt for
the outer perimeter of the sub, the
they
green
haven't.
belt's very shallow.
Yeah, they have not cleared this one yet. That might be the other one you're thinking of.
No, I walked this.
They're-
It's clear. It's not maybe perfectly cleared, but
They haven't started doing any clearing yet on this one.
On this site.
The other one is maybe the
We did
preserve.
minimal clearing just to do soil borings. We haven't done, I mean,
If-
you wouldn't even notice, I don't think.
They've really only cleared. I think, is it in this area?
Yeah, I mean, we came from that area. I mean, it was
so
so.
it's like if you come in, is at Colony Heights, so you just put.
Mhm.
If you
Yeah,
come
if
in,
you come in
actually
there.
can't even really access the property. It's so wooded
Yes.
right now.
Yes, you can. I've totally walked it, but that's neither here nor there. So maybe that will change. Maybe.
Well, so they're going to. I think where they cleared would be where the road system would go in, because they're actually going to have to clear their way in from the neighborhood when they do start, because it's really unsafe to do so from Elizabeth Lake Road, and try to coordinate all of that with the road commission before they do the road paving projects, which will happen. The road paving project, which will happen later this summer, and we hope that. And let me just finish that too. They're making a $20,000 contribution to that SAD, and you're going to see next month, hopefully, a resolution that the township has to adopt in order to make that contribution to that neighborhood per the road commission's requirement. But I didn't want to not mention that. But I think a lot of their clearing, and Nikki, correct me if I'm wrong, of the clearing that's been done is just it's going to follow really the limits of clearing that
Right.
are already planned.
And we only
cleared to get a drill rig in there to do soil boring. We cleared
Oh.
as little as we possibly could.
That's good news. If that's not the definitive line, then if they're going to stick more to what we had hoped for in the Greenbelt.
Right, and so when they do get in there and start mass clearing, they'll stick to the plan. We already have a plan to go out there and actually have them stake the limits of clearing.
Okay.
And our office and J&A will walk with them, and we're going to snow fence off all the protected areas so that there isn't an oops, because you can't have an oops with 80-year-old trees and replace them.
Yep.
So, and they're sensitive to that, and by there I mean MI Homes is sensitive to that and understands how important it is. And we've also agreed to not only plant supplemental landscaping, but potentially revisit that at a later date if additional trees need to be put in strategic locations to help with some of that buffering. They've agreed to do that, and I don't know that it'll be necessary, but if it is, and we need a few more 8-foot pine trees in a certain area, I think they're going to be more than willing to and actually expected to do that. So I don't
Sounds good.
have a concern about that. I think it'll go okay.
Mr. Powell.
Along that same line, I had at least suggested that maybe we could modify some of our minimum or maximum slope issues to be able to save some more trees. So as you're staking that out, and there's an 80-year-old tree, maybe we can loosen up on our 1 to 3 maximum slope and stabilize some things to preserve old timber of trees a little bit better.
Yeah, Mike, actually, I had conversation with Mike Lufkin about that, and I told him that trying to save as many of those features was kind of a priority.
Yeah.
And they may have to come up with some alternate soil stabilization techniques,
Right.
but some of these features are very important, and we'd like to try to, I mean, obviously, there are limits to everything,
Right.
but we'd like to try to salvage those as much as possible.
We would like to as well, so that's why we are happy to do this walk. And if there's trees that look like they can be saved, I think we want to err on trying to save them where possible.
I think we, unlike some communities, we do not have a woodland ordinance, and those can be burdensome or cumbersome, and it doesn't always work out well. But when there's a development agreement and a PD kind of situation, it does allow for some of that flexibility that may not otherwise be ingrained or a part of an approval process if it were just a straight zoned site plan, site condo. So, and the fact that the developers themselves have, made it pretty clear that they want to preserve. They understand that obviously the more vegetation that's mature that they save, the more value they have as well, because people generally prefer, mature trees. Yeah, right.
And I certainly appreciate that, because I've been part of many oopses, and you just can't replace those
Right.
trees. Absolutely. I've had many calls on the clearing on Union Lake Road, and certainly that is unfortunate. And so the other question I had, the Master Deed bylaws were not part of the documents that we were provided. And so I just have a question. How are they addressing the replacement of roads and maintenance of sewers in their Master Deed bylaws? Do you know?
I don't have that yet. I don't believe you've submitted
No,
those yet.
they're being drafted by our attorney right now. They are going to be private roads. I mean, obviously, other than the approach off of Elizabeth Lake Road. So it would be part of the homeowners association. It fall on them for road replacement. Sewer will be part of Oakland County Water Resources.
Storm sewer is what I was
Oh, I'm sorry.
thinking
Storm
of.
sewer would also be covered by the HOA, and that will be in our documents, our master deed and bylaws.
Okay, Mr. O'Neill knows my concern about waiting 20 years and having the homeowner say, "Oh, we don't have any money? What do you mean we don't have any money?" So that's why I was pursuing that, and he'll share that with you as you continue.
Yes, and those documents are approved administratively, and what a previous developer did was to put a pretty good budget in and do some front-end calculating, so you could turn over to an association, a budget that kind of outlines those costs going forward, so they have an idea of what they can anticipate and spend money on.
That's not a problem. I mean, obviously, we hire a management company that works with these homeowners, and we develop the budget to start with, because we're the property owner until we sell. So I think that would be, easily done.
Good.
Okay.
Mike, just so you know, our standard language that we require that go into Master Deed bylaws state that it's the developer's responsibility until the transitional control date, at which point it becomes the association's responsibility, but we always put in that language that says if they don't do it, we can do it at their expense, and then we bill them for the cost plus an admin fee. And that's standard language for all roads, utilities, any issues that happen.
And we just went through that, and I was suggesting it'd be a lot easier if they made it to where they have a sinking fund, where the funds are there when they need to be used, instead of coming to the township saying, we don't have any money, help us. So, that was just a thought.
Understood. Okay, any other questions from the board? Mr. Roman?
Sean, 4.10 D, which was language about driveways and sidewalks. As stated, driveways and sidewalks shall be constructed of concrete or asphalt. Are you good with that? With the choice of either or?
Yes, I mean, I don't know if they've decided. I mean, we prefer concrete driveways, but I don't know what.
What were we planning on here? We were planning on asphalt roads with concrete curb and gutter.
Sure, and then concrete sidewalks, of course, that's in the plans.
Mhm.
But as far as the driveways, I assume that's asphalt, but I don't, it's either or, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys.
I mean, I think we were assuming asphalt. I'm not opposed to concrete, but I don't know. I wasn't aware township requirement for the concrete driveways.
We don't have a requirement for concrete driveways, but I mean, it's just a preference. So really, I think you left yourself the either or. So
yeah.
I think it was more of maybe.
You'll have to
Okay, I saw Lisa's comments, and one of Lisa's comments was it was her understanding that the township was requiring curbs, gutters, and sidewalks and driveways to be concrete.
It was based on a conversation that I had with Sean.
Okay. So it's your call.
Yeah,
You're good with it the way it is then?
Right. I am.
Okay.
I mean, in my mind, and this is my preference, it should be, whatever it is, it should be uniform.
Right.
So whatever they decide, they should all be one way or they should all be the other. I mean, from a durability standpoint and maintenance standpoint, concrete would be preferable. But, you don't have to seal coat it, and, when it gets really hot, you don't get divots from parking heavy vehicles in it, things like that. But it's, and I don't know, cost-wise, it's probably cheaper to do asphalt, but it's not more durable. So that's just my preference.
It's not that much cheaper anymore. Yeah.
Asphalt?
Yeah.
Then if it's not much cheaper, then we should start requiring concrete. To me, I don't know why anyone would prefer
road bed,
asphalt
that's
over.
a whole other conversation, but the
Correct.
that should be asphalt. But the driveways, it would be nice if they were concrete. I think it would add added value to your product that you're trying to
Concrete
put out.
driveways. Are you guys good with that if we designate concrete driveways?
We're fine with concrete driveways.
Okay.
Any other questions?
2.2, page 5. I'd like council's recommendation in case any future township ordinances, laws, rules, or regulations are changed in the future.
I did have a conversation with counsel for the developer who indicated that he didn't intend for it to be that broad, and he didn't have a problem with being more specific to the zoning ordinance, which is obviously the intent.
Okay, so can I suggest we remove part of that first sentence, in particular the wording that says, or any other township ordinance or regulation? The sentence would then read, to the extent that the developing property in accordance with this agreement and the PD plan will deviate from the zoning ordinance, this agreement and PD plan shall control.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I'm just trying to think of what issues that opposing counsel for the developers might have, and I can't think of anything. I don't know if you want to make it maybe more flexible that I work with them on some of this language, because there are a couple other paragraphs that they have to change.
Would you prefer I leave it as is and?
No, it's fine with me. I'm just afraid that he might have a concern that I can't think about right now, which then would hinder moving forward if he
Okay.
makes specific requests.
And they have agreed to address all of the concerns and comments. And honestly, it'll be the case now, as it always is, that if we get to a point where there's an impasse and we can't resolve it, then they have to come back to see you and get on an agenda. And until they have this development agreement squared away, they really can't move forward.
So as a suggestion, maybe if you want to highlight the paragraphs that you want them to comply with in my letter, we can make sure. Because a lot of my letter is really to bring to your attention. You might want to consider this. Take a look at this paragraph. There's very few that ask for changes. And I think if you want some help, I know paragraph 2 is one that I'm a little hung up on. But
Really, paragraph 2, well, 2.2 and 4.1L.
Paragraph 2 of my letter, I think is a pretty significant issue that he's agreed to work with me on. We just haven't gotten there yet, so it's not necessarily a specific paragraph. It's really the theme of the agreement. So just to reiterate, the owners of the property are currently not parties to this development agreement.
Okay. I think they're on there now, though, aren't they?
No, but he's indicated he will work with me to come up with the language to incorporate what I want as far as the owners on here. They aren't as of the last draft. They were listed as, they sign an acknowledgement, and in paragraph 1.6, I believe, it specifically said that they're signing only for the purposes of acknowledging this agreement. So they're not bound to anything in the development agreement as of now. And I feel like they ought to be, since they own the property.
Why are we approving this today if you're going to go through and make all these changes?
Because there were really, that was the only big change that needed to be made, and the attorney indicated to me that we would work on it, but because it was important to get this on the agenda, we weren't able to flush out the language before today, with the understanding that this board can then move forward, conditioned on flushing out some of those issues.
Okay.
Condition. And just so you know, we send you the same thing that the planning commission sees. So even if they make changes, I'm really finicky about slipping changes into your packet of information, because now you're not looking at, it's not apples and apples anymore. So I'd rather tell you that the changes are going to be made that will address all these comments, your concerns, planning commission's concerns, than to start circulating multiple drafts that say different things. And so we just sort of froze it on the 6th of June and sent you the same thing.
Okay, Sean, does this come back to us again or not? Then?
No, generally when it leaves here, there are always little conditions.
Okay.
You know, maybe not this big generally, but there are little conditions. But as long as everyone agrees what it needs to say and what changes need to be made, you guys are usually good enough sorting it out.
I just want to make it clear, we're in the process of buying the property, but we're buying it in 2 takedowns, 2 phases. So we will be buying phase 1, if you look at the plans first, which is the northern portion of the property. So we are a party to the agreement and we'll be signing because we'll be an owner. We don't own it right now. We have a purchase agreement and hope to close in the next 30 days. But then there would be the other ownership group that will still own the second phase, and that's why your council is saying that we need to all sign this agreement, because it applies to the entire parcel, and it's not a problem to have them. They understand, the current owners that we're buying from, that they're going to be part of this agreement.
So just looking, if you want me to highlight what in my letter that I'm recommending changes to, other than taking out the kind of pointing you to certain paragraphs to take a look at, really, I mean, paragraph 1 is not a problem. They've agreed to provide that documentation. Paragraph 2, he's also agreed to work with me on that. Paragraph 3, I understand, Mr. Roman, that you would like to see the added the language limiting that to zoning ordinance and not all future township ordinances. And then we go down to paragraphs 7 and 8 of my letter. I understand, based on your discussion today, that you do want to require concrete for curbs, gutters, sidewalks, and driveways.
Just driveways.
Just driveways.
Just driveways.
No,
all of them. On everything, yeah.
The other ones have to
all
be
of them.
concrete.
But roads, we can still do
Yeah,
asphalt.
road is
The
asphalt.
rest we'll do concrete, that's not a problem.
And then paragraph 8, just adding the obligation of maintenance on the developer and owner until, I indicated here until the transitional control date, but after speaking with the attorney, he had some concerns, which I didn't necessarily debate, because there's different times when control transitions based on whether we're working on master deed and bylaws and whether we're working on a development agreement. So we're going to flush that language out as well, and he's agreed to do that. So those would be we should make changes and not just bring to your attention if you want to condition approval on those items being resolved between council and approved by the supervisor.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
And he'll have to sign it anyway. I think he and the clerk both signed this, so they'll have that final version.
Well, I don't know. Does anyone else have comments? Not.
I just, my biggest concern, as far as comments go, is that I want to make sure that, we have, obviously, the proper engineering plan submitted and that we address all the issues that are part of the concerns and comments. I mean, pretty much. Administratively, I have the utmost confidence in Sean and his department. They have not failed us yet.
Oh, boy.
That's a high standard there, mister.
Thanks for that. That's like a jinx, I think.
So I have no problem with it, but I just want to make sure that, obviously you talked about the sidewalk issue. That's a concern. We talked about the paving. That was a concern. The cement issues that we talked about. And we'll have a final signed set of plans, signed and sealed when this all comes together from their engineering department.
There are a few moving parts, but I'm confident that, they're very proficient at all of this stuff. They're been great to work with, so I assume everything will just fall into place.
Engineering comments 1 through 6, through Johnson and Anderson, you'll address those.
Yeah, there's some other comments that they're working through J&A, with J&A on some stormwater issues right now. We're meeting with them tomorrow on this land division thing that they briefly touched on, the 2 separate purchases, so everything's moving ahead, so.
I'm fine.
So should approval be conditioned on compliance with the engineer's comments as well then?
Well, the recommendation is all comments,
review
right?
comments.
Right.
I'll try to make a motion. Motion to approve the Trailside Meadow Plan Development Agreement, subject to Planning Commission comments, engineering comments, attorney comments, in particular, paragraph 2.2 be amended to take into consideration zoning issues, but not all township ordinances. And then paragraph 4.10 of the agreement, that curbs, gutters, sidewalks, driveways all be concrete. And that paragraph 6.1 be amended with whatever our attorney will work out.
And allow the supervisor to sign it?
And allow supervisor to assign it.
Support.
I have motion. I won't try to repeat that one. I have support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let's have it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Request to purchase new computer server for the police department. Chief, you want to try to update a few things here? I know that you're running into the technological issues that we all seem to run into.
Okay, so this is the server. So our server is 5 years old, and that's about the shelf life of servers. And IT Right advised us that as of January 2020, they will no longer be able to service our current server because of the operating system. So we need a new server. As you can see the pricing on there. We were trying to decide if we wanted to go with a cloud service or a permanent server in our police department, and we decided to go with the one that sits in our police department because it's cheaper. This will be talking to IT Right, this will be the last opportunity to go with that type of server, because in 5 years everything is going to be cloud based. It'll be more expensive, so we decided to go with the in-house server.
And I know this is from IT. Obviously, we're dealing with IT Right.
Yes, they are our people. So we have a lot of trust in them. They're building us a whole bunch of new computers throughout the township. So this is in line with that. And I would also like to mention that I'm also requesting a Barracuda message archiving system, which the township already has. So you guys have kind of a test throw it for us. And then and speaking with Kathy DeRocher, she says it's effective and efficient. I would like to add that to the police department server as well. It'll help us retain emails, etc. for FOIA
Message
purposes.
archiver.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. So that would put us at right around
15.5?
15.5?
Yes.
Mr. Powell.
Mr. Supervisor and Chief Keller, I noticed, and maybe I'm not reading it correctly, when they quoted us for upgrading the Township Hall server and computers, the next month or a couple months later, there was a fairly large addition for all the software that needed to be upgraded as well. And so I don't know if that's included in this, or will we expect another fairly large cost to upgrade all the software?
I do not expect any other updates besides the ones that are on here that included this cost.
Okay.
There better not be.
Okay. Mr. Roman?
Motion to approve police server with archive system not to exceed $15,500.
Motion, looking for support?
Support.
I have support from Mrs. Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Okay.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, request for police department fleet vehicle equipment build. Okay.
All right, so we did things a little differently this year. We usually come together with the whole package with the vehicle purchases and the police builds, but we did things differently because we wanted to purchase 2019 vehicles this year as well because of the price difference between the 2019 and the 2020. So what this is specifically for the build of the 3 vehicles that we are purchasing or have purchased this year. And this is the cost it's going to be, which is about $29,500. I'm asking for to change over the 3 vehicles. This will be the last of the 3 vehicles that need updates in the lighting package. So we'll be up to date, and all the cars will be the same lighting package, which is what we've done the past several years. What I'm also asking for is, this is a very tedious process. As you can see, if you read it, that Sergeant Silverthorne went to these companies, checked them out, and previewed what their business is like. And it's ours. It's a good couple weeks to go out there and visit and whatnot and get quotes. And we do it year after year. And there are some of the companies that, as you can see by cruisers, that aren't giving us the time of day anymore because they haven't got our business in the past, and it's been years and years that they've been giving us bids, and they're kind of saying, without saying it, that we're good. And so we're not getting the quotes from them anymore. So what I'm requesting is that we use Procom for the next 3 years with your signature and your any costs over 500, they'll go to you and you'll give them the okay. This is for a 3-year period, and at any time that we stop using Procom, we will go in front of the board again with the companies, and we will do this all over again.
But you want a cost through 2021 at no cost not to exceed $5,000.
$5,000, yes.
That's something obviously you'd have to bring before me.
Yes, this is normal procedure. I just want to, Procom, we've talked to them in depth, and they were moving their company or adding another company to Flushing from Mount Pleasant to Flushing, which is, it really isn't that far comparatively to use them. And from what I hear from other departments, that this is a very good company, and we're looking forward to working with them.
Questions from the board?
I have a question, and Chief, maybe you can help me. It's a little bit hazy here because I don't know how to interpret it. Procom for our fleet. I don't know how many cars are in the total fleet, not to exceed more than $5,000 per vehicle per year. So if you have 20 cars, that's $100,000 per year for 3 years. That's $300,000. It just says cars per fleet, and we have more cars in our fleet than just the 3 new ones that we bought.
So every year we'll change over 3 new ones and an admin vehicle. And usually the admin vehicles don't require too much work, if any, depending if it's a patrol admin vehicle. We like to put some lights on there just in case, because he'll go to more accident scenes and whatnot. So the changeover itself is about $2,100, $2,200 for those 3 vehicles per year. I added some extra just in case the lighting package, something's broken in the lighting package, so we need to replace something, and that will be in addition to the admin vehicle too. So the total $5,000 will be for the 3 fleet vehicles. I'm sorry, the total $5,000 per vehicle, and that will leave some room for the admin vehicle in there. So it'll be $15,000 total per year.
Okay, that's just for the new vehicles,
Yes.
not the entire White Lake Township
Correct.
fleet.
That was already done.
Because it just says our fleet, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money.
That is a lot.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
It's per the rotation schedule.
Yeah.
Correct.
That makes sense.
And then this way, it just saves some time and.
Oh, sure.
It's expense we have when we have to change out the equipment. It's not like we have a lot of choice in the matter. So, all right. Any other questions from the board?
I'm good. Chief and I have had several conversations about this.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Roman?
Motion to approve vehicle build-out not to exceed $30,000 for the 3 police SUVs.
Support.
And?
I was going to do them separately.
Oh, you want to do them separately? I guess you could do them separately.
Was supported.
Okay, motion, support from Ms. Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Second motion to approve use of Procom at a cost not to exceed $5,000 per vehicle for fleet changeover through 2021.
Support.
Motion from Mr. Roman, support from Mrs. Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thanks, Chief.
All right, thank you. See you in a bit.
Okay, 11H is before you, and I apologize for its late arrival, although this is an objective that this board has had for some period of time. We have been able to coordinate and now have the contracts that line up. We had them scattered all over the place like, grains of sand on a beach. So now it'll be a little easier for us to deal with all the different unions and the laborers at times it comes. The fire department was very gracious and understanding, and they were very receptive, I'd say, to extending their current contract for 1 year, which would then put all the contracts in sync. This was gone over extensively by Kathy DeRocher, our HR director, and by Brandon Fournier, our township labor attorney, and reviewed by the chief and reviewed by the union and presented to the union. And my understanding is they did ratify it, and they're coming to us looking for us to approve this so we can move forward and meet some of our objectives. Chief, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Only if there's questions.
Only if there's a question. There we go. I think it meets some objectives that we've been trying to get to. Okay.
Pretty straightforward. Complex.
It seems pretty consistent with what we've done in the past.
Okay. With that, I'd like to entertain a motion.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to approve the Firefighters Association tentative agreement dated June 5th, 2019 as submitted.
Support.
I have a motion from Mr. Powell. I have support from Mrs. Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. I'd like to take a 5-minute recess.
Okay.
Under old business, item 12A, request to adjust purchase price of police vehicle approved for purchase in March of 2019, March 12, 2019 meeting. We had some difficulty acquiring some vehicles, right, Chief?
Yes, so in the March meeting, Lieutenant Hill spoke to you guys in reference to purchasing 3 2019 police utility vehicles. We were only, or Gorno was only able to purchase 2 of the 3, which is unfortunate. We were hoping to get the 3, and he was fairly confident, but it fell through. There were several other police departments that didn't get the ask that they wanted as well. So luckily, he was able to secure a vehicle, 2019 SUV that was supposed to go to Oakland County, but apparently they didn't need it. So it was first come, first serve, and Lieutenant Hill has a good relationship with the Gorno. So he gave us the price, but it's $1,684 more than the vehicles from the March 12th meeting.
Is that just due to a little different build on the vehicle?
Yes. Yeah, two spotlights and a couple minor things, but we're lucky.
That's a nice little feature we don't have on our cars.
Right. And it's we're just happy to get it because the new prices are coming out. It looks like it's going to be over $33,000 a vehicle.
Ouch. Okay. Questions from the board? Mr. Roman?
Motion to approve an additional $1,700 to purchase police SUV 2019 model.
A motion, I will support that. So a motion and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thanks, Chief. We're good to go.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. John, one of your favorite subjects here. Second reading of amend the Chapter 18, Article 3 of the Code of Ordinances for fireworks, which will put us in compliance with state law. Correct, Counselor?
That's correct.
I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yes.
I'm satisfied with everything you've produced, and I would like the board to adopt this so we can move forward as the holiday season. The noisy holiday season will be upon us shortly, and this will put us in compliance.
Just as a statement, my house sits on a hill, and I'm hearing fireworks, and I'm thinking it's to the west of us, and I'm thinking it's not in White Lake, in other words, but I'm hearing them out there. So
Yeah, it's already started. Any questions from the board? Mr. Roman?
Motion to approve the amendment to Chapter 18, Article 3 of the Code of Ordinances, fireworks.
I have a motion. I'm looking for support.
Awesome.
Support from Andrea Voorhees. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you. Okay, second reading, Consumers Energy Franchise Renewal Ordinance. This is not something that we have a lot of, thanks, John, lateral movement in. It is a 30-year agreement, so it won't be coming back here anytime soon. And if we want natural gas in our community, we need to sign it. So talk about Big Brother, okay? So with that being said, I'm looking for a motion to approve. Mr. Roman?
Motion to approve renewal agreement for Consumers Energy and authorize the clerk and supervisor to sign it.
Motion, looking for support.
I'll support that also.
I have support from Andrew Voorhees. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Item 12D, the second reading, the Kimmel Rezoning. Of course, just a quick reminder that it's the couple parcels that were on Elizabeth Lake Road that for some reason kind of fell off the radar screen and were commercial, and they just want to get back to residential. And I think we went through a lot of questions and answers for that last time, and I think, and Terry, I remember Terry said, what were the signs for? You know, and I think everybody was just kind of like surprised that they were even still commercial.
Even one of the people who owned a house out there was surprised to know that he was able to finance it when it was zoned general business, but couldn't refinance it. So that's unfortunate, which started this whole process. So we're
very, very odd.
Yep.
Okay. Any questions from the board on this? Just Mr. Powell?
Mr. Supervisor, I move to rezone the property parcels numbers 12-26, 107-019, comma 020 and 021 from general business to R1D single family residential.
Okay, I'll take that as a motion as it was. I'm looking for support.
Support.
Support from Michael Roman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Have rezoned. Item E is our second reading of the ordinance prohibiting marijuana establishments under initiated law 1 of 2018, the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act. Counselor, do you have anything to add on that? I haven't received anything or seen anything come down the pipe yet. Oh, what a pun there.
Yeah, come down.
Yeah, I didn't think about that when I said it.
No, the rules haven't come out yet.
Okay, but we'll be in good shape.
Yes, and as the ordinance indicates, it is to allow sufficient time to review and evaluate. Once the rules come out, you can always revisit this issue down the line, down the pipe.
Down the pipe, yeah, okay. Any further questions from the board members? Okay, entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the ordinance prohibiting marijuana establishments under the initiated law 1 of 2018, the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act.
I have a motion, looking for support.
Support.
I have support from Mr. Powell. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Okay, that brings us
Just
to,
have a side note. This automatically will report to Lara because we haven't reported in the opting out. So after this
It'll get-
weekend.
shuffled to Laura.
It's not effective until it's published. So
Supported it.
You did.
2 weeks maybe it'll be effective and we can send it off.
Okay, thank you.
Good question, Ms. Smith. That being said, brings us to trustee comments. And I would like to start with Ms. Andrea Voorhees.
I just want to talk about the WODA meeting that we had at West Oakland Transportation Authority. That was May 21st. In a sense, public transportation is coming to White Lake. It's a smaller scale, hopefully in the next 6 months to 9 years, or 9 months, excuse me. We'll have transportation not only for the seniors that no longer drive, but even like the population that I serve in my full-time job that can get to work or even to the grocery store. Want to say what a great time I had at the police open house. Rick helped me out with how many hot dogs we went through.
I think 1,000.
Yeah.
Close.
Wow.
Chief might know, he was counting them, so.
He was counting.
Yeah, it was probably
I
pretty
think
close.
about 1,000.
Pretty close to
I
1,000.
didn't have one.
And one of my favorite parts of the day was getting my picture taken with the fire department at the police open house. So I shared that with Chief Keller earlier, and I know it's all about the police department, but it was fun. And lastly, my goal was, from now on, is to do a little bit of historical society, history of White Lake. So excuse me, but it's on my cell phone. I didn't have a chance to print it off. This is reminiscence of the White Lake School District 7 fractional by Wilbert McKeechee, a student from 1926 to 1934. And he said, taking a pail to pump the water from the well under the box elder tree in the corner of the schoolyard was a special privilege, as was cleaning the erasers by pounding them together, since these duties meant staying outside. Otherwise, we had to stay in our seats, except when called to the front bench to recite. The exceptions to this rule were getting water, cleaning erasers, going to the toilets that were outside, boys on the west and the girls on the east, and getting help from other pupils. To go outside, one held up a hand with one finger, 2 fingers was to go to the toilet. Yeah, exactly. Classes lasted 10 minutes, and all 8 grades took turns being questions on their assignments. We used flashcards and were taught phonics in our reading classes. We practiced drills of repeated circles and vertical lines for the Palmer method used to teach handwriting. We used Carpenter books about other countries to supplement our geography test. His dad, the teacher was his dad, Bert McKeechee, which is the McKeechee Road family, really in geography, and that really rubbed off on him. By mid-afternoon, Dad was usually behind on his schedule, and a 7th or 8th grader might be asked to hear the spelling lessons of the younger children. Another reason I talked about this one is Wilbert McKeechee just died at the age of 97 in the past week. And I thought it was appropriate because June is like a school month. Everyone's getting out, so I just thought it was a good time to remember Wilbert McKeechee at the same time.
Cool.
And
Yeah, very interesting. Nice little piece of history there. Mrs. Smith.
Okay, so I want to start out with, I'm so excited to announce that the library finally opened and had its ribbon cutting and grand open ceremony on June 6th. So that's a long time in the making, and it's very exciting. I want to thank Mr. O'Neill, Mr. Potter, and Mr. Bonnevier for their discussions, time, and effort working with me and getting that completed, and it's a success. Thank you. I also want to thank my colleagues for keeping an open line of communication with me during the process. I know we weren't always on the same page, but thank you for communicating with me as we got the process done and the building completed. So thank you. Next, the library board meeting is Wednesday, June 25th at 6:45 at the new library. I believe it's going to be in the gathering room, which is the first room when you enter on your right. Andrea mentioned the police open house. It was lots of fun. We made hot dogs, Andrea and Rick and Bob. And thank you to Chief and the entire department. You put on a wonderful open house. Thank you. It was, I think, your biggest attendance. It was, to me, it seemed like the biggest one yet. So thank you so much for all that hard work and effort that goes into that. I had the pleasure of attending Michigan Police Week Committee to plan next year, and I was so incredibly proud of our department. I just want to say that in comparison to other, I mean, everyone's doing a wonderful job, but in comparison to other departments, we are leaps and bounds ahead in so much, and I was really proud to represent our department, our police department, and had the privilege of planning a fun Police Week for next year. But I just want to mention, please don't just limit it to 1 week. Please show your appreciation to them all year. They deserve it. I mean, you saw what an outstanding job they did tonight in the awards, and that's just a snippet of what they do every day. So thank you. I wanted just to quickly mention that it's PSTD Awareness Month. I know a lot of people struggle with that, and we have a community that you can reach out to. So if you need help, please reach out. I want to congratulate our graduates, high school graduates, that time of year. So well wishes to you all, and be safe as you celebrate. And lastly, I want to wish Scott and family a healthy birth, hopefully. They have a new family member today, so that's exciting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's it? Good? Okay. Mr. Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I just wanted to point out to maybe our residents that although we passed a consent agenda tonight, I wanted to point out that during the month of May, the police department received 2,400 calls for service. That's 80 calls per day. That's a tremendous amount of calls per day from our police department. The fire department had 184 calls for service for that month, and so that just tells you how busy our police and fire department is here locally. Then I'd also like to ask maybe the administration staff, Mr. Supervisor, to put together a joint meeting between the Civic Center Development Committee and this board in a work session maybe, to discuss what this board is looking for as guidance to the Civic Center Development Committee, so that we can give better guidance to our consultant too. So it'd be good to have this board meet with the committee. Then I take to heart the communication and the statements from Ms. Meisel, and then
Rick Drury?
Yeah, Rick, regarding the sanitary sewers. It's even though my office designs engineered septic systems, that is just not the right way to deal with sanitary sewer waste in this township. Not only do they fail, like was presented tonight, but in order to get them approved in today's society, you change the appearance of their interior yards. You have to then raise those beds up. You have to pump the sewage up into raised beds. Sometimes you have to pre-treat. And so the cost of repairing septic systems in this township between $20,000 and $40,000 for a single-family home. To drive it home a little bit, we just received 3 calls on Farnsworth One 200 feet away from the sanitary sewer, and two that are 400 feet away from the sanitary sewer on Farnsworth. Terrible systems, small room. That's that's going to cost them $100,000 to $150,000 to replace septic systems, and we have a sewer 400 feet away to serve all three of them, and shame on us for allowing that to happen. And I plead with this board to have a study session. I met with the Oakland County Health Department today. They would be very willing to come in and discuss with this township the concerns of putting septic fields back in, when in another 10 years they're going to have to spend another $30,000, $40,000. So we really need to take the initiative and extend sanitary sewers for our residents. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Mr. Roman.
My turn. I want to thank the residents for attending tonight, as well as those that are watching live stream. Thanks for watching, and thanks for taking part in our community. I want to thank all of our police and firemen for the great job that you guys all do. You really do make us all proud. And I want to thank the police chief for feeding us lunch today with your open house leftovers. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Well, there's a lot that's said here that is worth repeating, but you know, I appreciate everyone that I work with here every day, and I appreciate the fact that I have the privilege of being the supervisor of this township, and that the folks out there have entrusted me with that position to do this. When I have an opportunity that comes to me and I can take it, I go after it. And the park was one of the things that was really something that I wanted to go after. We're not quite there yet, but you know, by moving forward, we are retaining some of our past, and that will allow us to preserve property for generations to come. And when you look at other communities, and I mentioned this to other folks, when you go into Waterford, and you go into Bloomfield, and you go into Farmington. You know, I lived in Farmington in the early 70s, like 1970, and you know, Inkster was gravel. You know, I mean, it was still rural. There were cows here and there. There was a lady had a deer farm at the corner of 10 Mile and Inkster. I mean, there was a lot of things out there, but all that's gone, and all that property's been gobbled up. So it was important to me, and I believe it was important to this board and this township as a whole, to try to preserve something so that 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now, when we inevitably evolve and continue to grow, that we will have something that people will truly be able to enjoy. And they may not remember who did it, but when they walk through it, they're hopefully going to enjoy it. And we kept a little bit of God's land the way that it's meant to be for the township. So we're also working on the Township Triangle and the Township Trail, which are things that are going to be coming out through Park and Rec here not too long, and try to bring some things to the community that people wanted, which were the trails, and just trying to go about it a certain way and trying to take advantage of it. And people voted for the millage, and we're going to try to deliver some goods. So those things will come before the board. The Civic Center Development Committee will absolutely have a joint session or two with the township board as we go through this process. You know, of course, we have moved on with the spatial planning for the public safety building. We're also going to be putting before the board after this Civic Center Development Committee takes a look at it, a proposal for spatial planning on the property and planning that we're going to need for a new township facility, and try to keep the ball rolling. There's obviously been more activity in that area now with the library being open. The library looks fantastic. Okay, they just got to get that crate off the roof. You know? And it's just the township moving forward in a different direction. So moving forward nonetheless. So with that, I say thank you very much. God bless and good night. And looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
Motion, support, all in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.